Welcome to Kris T Health Channel, your go-to source for all things related to health, food diets, fitness, longevity, and mindset, from the latest diet trends to the most effective workout routines. Our goal is to provide you with the tools and knowledge you need to make informed decisions about your health and well-being. So, if you're ready to take control of your health and start living your best life, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more insights and tips on how to achieve optimal health and longevity. Together, we can make positive changes that will benefit us for years to come. This is Kris T Health Channel. Time to get started with today's episode. In today's episode about fasting and autophagy, we are unveiling the power of autophagy and fasting for health and longevity. We're diving into the fascinating world of fasting and its connection to autophagy, the body's cellular cleansing process, and weight management. We've all heard about fasting, but how can it benefit our health? What is fasting? Fasting is voluntary abstinence from food and drink for a specific period. For today's episode, we gather for you the opinion of Thomas DeLauer, Cynthia Thurlow, Dr. Stan Eckbert, Dr. Fung, and Dr. Berg. Fasting is very simple. It shouldn't be that hard. Some people overthink it, but those things are really simple and extremely powerful. Here is what Dr. Jason Fung says about starting the fasting.
So how are you going to fast? Fasting is just any period you're not eating, but you can still drink fluids. Classically, fasts are water only. But there's many variations that you can use. In fact, you can take a lot of fluids such as green teas, herbal teas, or coffee without sweeteners or sugar or cream. And they have no calories, so they're not really going to break your fast. Because they have no energy, your body is still going to need to use some of those calories. Don't eat all the time. Give yourself a break from eating so that you can burn those calories, which is simply food energy. Body fat is just a store of that food energy. It's not there for looks. It's a source of calories, food energy. So give your body a chance to use it up.
Now let's look at how Dr. Eric Berg describes fasting.
In order to understand the benefits of fasting, you want to compare it to another subject, and usually a subject that would be the opposite, okay? And that would be snacking, okay? If you look at what snacking does to the human body, it is absolutely positively devastating because of what it does to insulin. It's a chronic increase in elevation of insulin, which then leads to just a million other problems. We have this idea that you have to heal the body with food, right? Like food is nourishing. Actually, it might be nourishing, but to really heal, you're better off not eating. This idea that breakfast is the most important meal is a total lie. So if we look at snacking, snacking actually makes you more hungry because you're eating a small amount of calories and you're stimulating insulin, and that lowers your blood sugar about an hour and a half later. So you're going to stimulate hunger, not stimulate your metabolism, okay? You're going to stimulate hunger when you snack, and it's going to promote more hunger. It actually slows your metabolism, or shall I say, slows your ability to lose weight because you develop insulin resistance, because you have this constant increase of insulin. And also it's going to promote a need for a nap, okay? Right after you eat, you're going to feel like you need a nap. Now, in history, a lot of great thinkers have commented on fasting and had something to say about fasting. Hippocrates said, "To eat when you are sick is to fuel your illness." Fascinating, right? And then we have the ancient Greek philosophers, right? The great thinkers. Pythagoras required fasting of his students, okay, so they can think more clearly. Plato, Aristotle were advocates of fasting. Ben Franklin said the best of all medicine is rest and fasting. Mark Twain said, "A little starvation can really do more for the average sick person than the best medicine and the best doctor."
The next expert we will hear is Cynthia Thurlow in her TEDx speech about fasting.
So when you eat, Insulin is secreted by the pancreas to move sugar into the cells. We store the bulk of our sugar in our liver and our skeletal muscle. But when we exceed those storage sites, we store it as fat. When we're fasted, insulin levels are low, and we can tap into fat stores for energy. Free, flexible, simple. And so when we're talking about intermittent fasting, it's fairly simple. If you skip breakfast in the morning, you can reduce your caloric intake by 20 to 40%. The 20 to 40% reduction in calories means that you can fuel fat loss. So what are some of the benefits other than fat loss? Fat loss, and especially visceral fat around our abdomens, around our major organs. We know that it improves mental clarity because insulin levels are low. We know that it spikes human growth hormone, which helps us with lean muscle mass. We know that it induces something called autophagy. I will speak more about this in a second, but this is spring cleaning for the cells. It is only evoked when we are fasted. Autophagy. We know that it lowers insulin levels, blood pressure, improves our cholesterol profile, and we know that it can reduce your risk for developing cancer and Alzheimer's disease, which I like to call type 3 diabetes.
Now let's hear what Dr. Stan Ekberg, who is Olympic athlete and holistic doctor, will say about fasting.
Fasting and intermittent fasting have mechanisms that go far, far beyond that. And some people, they're not so particular with the quality of food when they do the intermittent fasting because they lose weight anyway. But let me say that the quality of food is critical for your long-term health. Sure, you can lose weight, but long-term, you want to be healthy. So always pick whole food over processed food. Always pick real food over fake food. The first thing is fuel. Fuel can be converted into energy, and energy is measured in calories. That's the short-term goal. And those are things like fat, carbohydrates, protein. They have energy. But we also are looking for building blocks. And this is where whole food is so much better than processed foods, because whole food has essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, has whole complex vitamins and minerals delivered in the package that nature always intended. And when you process foods, then you're cutting out a lot of those building blocks. And these building blocks, they are replacement parts. Now, we do have current needs and future needs. So we eat because we need some stuff right now, but if food isn't always available, then we need to be able to save some for future needs. So whenever there's feast, whenever there's more food available than we need for right this moment, then we can store some. And then when there's less food available, such as in famine, then we can use up those energy stores until we have a feast again. So this storing, a lot of times people think of this that, oh, why do I have all this fat on my body? That's so stupid. Why is my body so stupid? Well, it's not so stupid because it's about survival. So if you eat 5 meals at 300 calories, that's 1,500 calories, and theoretically that should cause a deficit. But it won't long term because the body has adaptive mechanisms. So here's what happens to the insulin, that when you fast while you're sleeping, then insulin goes down. But all the rest of the time, every time you eat, you're creating an insulin spike, which is a message. It's a mechanism that will store more fat and prevent fat burning. So the only time that you're actually moving toward insulin sensitivity, the only period of time during the day that you have to reverse insulin resistance is when you're sleeping. And the rest of the time, your insulin is basically moving toward insulin resistance, even though you're eating fewer calories. So we'll talk a little bit more about the calories in a second. Calorie restriction can reduce insulin to some degree because you're lessening the total amount of food, but it's not enough. Now let's compare that scenario with if we eat a couple of larger meals, but we have a longer fasting period. So let's say that we do intermittent fasting and we have our first meal at noon or shortly thereafter, and then we have a second meal around 6 or 8 o'clock. Now the rest of the time, assuming it takes 2 hours after a meal to get into moving toward insulin sensitivity, we spend 16 hours a day, or 2/3 of the day, moving toward insulin sensitivity, moving away from insulin resistance, and only 8 hours, or 1/3, moving toward insulin resistance. So this is the key factor of why intermittent fasting is so much more powerful than reducing calories by themselves. Weight loss and fat burning can happen only when insulin is going down. And that can only happen when we eat less food, when we eat less carbs, and when we eat less frequently.
Hear what Thomas DeLauer is talking about fasting and what he recommends.
Longer-term fast is defined as something that's a little bit more than 24 hours, 48 hours, or 72 hours. It's not to be confused with intermittent fasting, where you're focusing on more like a 16-hour fasting window. So with prolonged fasting or long-term fasting, we're pushing the envelope a little bit more. We're going a little bit more for a longevity effect versus just a metabolic or fat loss effect like with intermittent fasting.
Fasting and prolonged fasting, they both have different benefits. Here are our experts to tell us more about the intermediate fasting and prolonged fasting.
I usually say that a longer-term fast should be considered 24 to 72 hours. After 48 hours, a lot of the effects of a fast actually start to diminish. So people often think that the longer the fast, the better. That's not necessarily true. I mean, sure, you can burn some more fat, you can get a large effect from it, but at 48 hours, you start to see a little bit of a diminishing return. Now, when it comes down to stem cells, which we're going to talk a little bit about in this video, you have until about 72 hours until things start to diminish a little bit. So I'm not saying don't go for the 5-day fast, but the reality is, for most bang for the buck, a 2 to 3 day fast is exactly what we really want to aim for.
So how we can start the fasting?
So what I usually recommend is, even if you're not following a ketogenic protocol otherwise, try to go anywhere from 3 to 5 days of low carbohydrate or ketogenic prior to starting your longer term fast. This is for 2 reasons. For one, you're going to be significantly less hungry, and I mean significantly, and I promise, okay, you're going to be way less hungry because you're already going to have ketones produced and your body's already going to be somewhat fat adapted. We want the body to already know that it can use fats as a fuel source. So therefore, when you drop into your fast and you're not eating, it's not searching for glucose. Your body already knows fats are fuel, so it starts pulling it from your adipose tissue. This will make your life a lot easier. The other reason is it allows the process of ketone production to occur earlier. So if you lead into a fast with a ketogenic protocol for 3, 4, 5 days, then you can get away with fasting for 36 or 48 hours rather than having to push it to 72 or even 96 or longer. Okay, so this is a very big thing. The other thing that you want to do prior to starting your fast is hyperhydrate and sodium load, okay? So what happens is, as soon as you stop eating food, your insulin levels drop lower, and the lower levels of insulin communicate to the kidneys to expel water. So what ends up happening is you end up dropping a lot of water weight, which is great because you feel good, you feel lean, but you end up dropping a lot of very important minerals. And if you don't hyperhydrate and sodium load a little bit beforehand, you put yourself into a bit of a situation where you could be really dehydrated, but not just dehydrated, but mineral deficient too. And that's going to cause some problems with your body's electrical system, which is going to make you not feel so optimal. The other thing is that we have these things called NST receptors. And if we're sodium deficient, those NST receptors communicate to us to eat. They communicate with us to eat salt, but the fact is the wires get crossed and we end up craving sugar a lot of times. So super, super, super important that you sodium load and hyperhydrate, even if you're not doing the ketogenic protocol leading up to it. I promise this will make life easier.
Let's go back to Dr. Jason Fung and his advice on starting the fasting.
So here's a very simple fasting protocol. Just start with a 12 to 14 hour fasting period. That just means cutting out bedtime snacks, and make sure that you cut out the snacks in between meals as well. If you finish dinner time, for example, at 6 p.m., and you were to eat breakfast at 8 a.m., that's a 14-hour period of fasting. That's a good way to let your body get into that fasted state. And this was the way that people ate in the 1970s. And they stayed relatively thin.
Intermediate fasting and prolonged fasting. They both have different benefits. Here are our experts to tell us more about the intermediate fasting and prolonged fasting.
8 major benefits from prolonged fasting. Now, prolonged fasting is where you'd go 48, 72 hours or longer, sometimes a week, sometimes 21 days, sometimes even longer. There's some interesting benefits that occur when you do this. The body goes into this survival mode. It's kind of like a physiological. Let's start with number 1. You actually regrow your brain cells. Not the entire brain, but very specific parts of the brain, including the hippocampus, parts of the brainstem, and other parts as well. Part of the hippocampus that's regenerated has to do with memory. Okay, there's like a relay switch in there that helps you get access to your database, your memory, your file cabinet of memories. So you're able to regrow that structure of the brain to improve memory. Okay, number 2, increase mitochondria. The mitochondria are the energy factories of the body. So you're going to find that your energy goes straight through the roof. Incredible amounts of energy when you don't eat. Well, remember, you're burning your fat, so you are eating, you're just not eating dietary calories. Number 3, autophagy. This is a condition in your body whereby it recycles old damaged proteins, okay? And other things like microbes and damaged mitochondria. So it's kind of a good self-cleaning action going on. And you recycle these proteins into new proteins to build new tissue. This is the epitome of anti-aging. But in order to get in this, you want to do prolonged fasting. Now, I do recommend doing intermittent fasting once a month or once every other month, or even like 4 times a year would be great. All right, next one is enhanced stem cell production. The stem cell is the cell without a purpose. It's not differentiated into a specific cell yet. It just sits there until the body says, I need a new cell because this is damaged or it needs to be replaced, and you actually get new cells. As you age, stem cells go down. The more stress you have, the more sugar you eat, or the more frequently you eat, the more it goes down. And this is another reason why you would get younger and you would feel more youthful, because you have more replacement. So prolonged fasting is a really amazing repair action. All of the autoimmune diseases involve inflammation. That's why the remedy for autoimmune, whether it's MS, rheumatoid, always involves taking steroids. And if you have an autoimmune condition, this is essential. You can greatly improve that condition because of the effect on prolonged fasting on the immune system. Number 6, decrease tumor growth. So whether you have a polyp, a cyst, a boil, a fibroid, you need to do prolonged fasting to improve that situation. When you get into fasting, you run your body on ketones, and tumors cannot survive with ketones. Cancer lives on sugar, and when we do fasting, we deplete the sugar reserves, your glycogen reserves, and we're running on ketones, okay, and fatty acids. Well, tumors can't live on that, okay, so we starve them off. And also, cancer lives on glucose and L-glutamate. So by doing prolonged fasting, you get to starve cancer as well. So that's another benefit that I didn't mention. Number 7, increase antioxidants. Your body has an antioxidant network, okay? So you have vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc can act as an antioxidant, glutathione, lipoic acid, there's a whole bunch of them. So when you go into fasting, your antioxidant levels go way up. Why? Because this is where the body repairs and it defends itself against microbes and things like that. But zinc actually goes up when you do prolonged fasting. And zinc is involved in a lot of enzymes that are antioxidant. Okay, number 8, cell resistance to stress. So there's been this idea that when you do prolonged fasting, it's very stressful to the adrenals. Well, actually, it's helpful to the adrenals because it increases your stress tolerance. You're no longer running on the ups and downs of sugar. You're basically going into this interesting repair mode where the body starts to increase the resistance to all sorts of stresses.
So here again, Dr. Jason Fung. This time he will describe the fasting benefits. The reason why we need to fast.
why should you fast? There's actually a number of very good reasons why you should fast. One is that it creates a structure to your eating day. A lot of us don't know how to eat anymore. In the 1960s, 1970s, it was very easy. You ate breakfast, you ate lunch, you ate dinner, and that's it. You didn't eat in your car, you didn't eat at the movie theaters, you didn't eat anywhere else. If you wanted a snack, your mom would say, no, you're going to ruin your dinner. If you wanted a bedtime snack, your mom would say, no, you should have ate more at dinner. There were just periods of time that you eat. Now, people are confused. They think they can eat any time they want. And they can eat as often as they want, and it won't make any difference. The truth is that it does. If you eat more frequently, it's a lot easier to eat more. If you're eating when you're not hungry, well, there's a good chance you're going to be eating foods that you shouldn't be eating. Second, it builds dietary consistency. If you're eating the same 1 or 2 or 3 meals day in, day out, giving yourself that good period of fasting, well, you're going to be consistent, and consistency is the key to getting results. But even more important, consistency builds habits. If you get into habits, you don't need willpower. Number 4, it's a very easy way to control your eating. What you're doing is you're counting the hours that you're allowed to eat, the number of meal times that you have, rather than calories, because counting calories is notoriously inaccurate. And number 5, it's a very traditional way of eating. It's ingrained in our very language. And the simplest rule of weight loss, don't eat all the time. Give yourself a break from eating so that you can burn those calories, which is simply food energy. Body fat is just a store of that food energy. It's not there for looks. It's a source of calories, food energy. So give your body a chance to use it up.
Here are the Dr. Ekberg list of benefits. As you can see, they all share common benefits of the fasting. And we also share their view. But listen Dr. Ekberg for more details.
Some of the benefits are weight loss, insulin reduction in insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. It can boost immunity, it can boost autophagy, it can boost mental clarity, and the benefits go on and on. You can even build a better brain. You make more human growth hormone and more brain-derived neurotrophic factor when you're fasting, and both those hormones are essential for making new brain tissue and new connection.
What we should not do when we fast, and also even if we do not fast.
Social media is probably a big one of them because there's a lot of food. A lot of times when you go on TV also, there's a lot of advertisements. And you don't want to be reminded of food when you're fasting. It's just not a good idea. Grocery shopping is also something is very difficult to do because you're going to tend to want to buy things and then you're going to be reminded. Cooking, going to a mall where there's lots of food courts, for example, and there's smells of the food court. Those are probably not a good thing. Also, parties are very difficult because oftentimes there's food. And so those are things that are best not to do during fasting. And the biggest 3 fasting mistakes, 1 is triggers. So oftentimes we get hungry because we're triggered, whether it's the smells of the food or socializing or the situation. It's the environment that puts us in danger of breaking the fast. Number 2 is doing it alone. Everything is easier when you do it with somebody. So try to find somebody that will support you, somebody you can talk to about it, somebody who has experience. And number 1, avoid overeating. Once you finish your fast, remember you're trying to feed your body through the calories that you've already stored. Whether it's glucose, you're going to take that and feed yourself with your blood glucose. And therefore, you might improve your type 2 diabetes. Or you might feed yourself through your body fat and you're going to be able to lose fat. But if you then eat a lot when you start eating again, well, you're going to undo a lot of the good that you just did. So remember, avoid overeating. Just try and forget about the fast that you did and eat that next meal as normally as possible.
You still want to expect to get hungry. It will happen. And when it happens, it's usually because you're not fat adapted. If you are fat adapted, your body has access to fat stores for fuel, and it doesn't sense any lack. It just goes on with business. If you get mood swings, and if you get low energy, and you lose focus, and you get irritable when you miss a meal, that simply means you're not fat adapted. That means your body does not have metabolic flexibility. It doesn't know where to get energy if you don't eat for a few hours. That's not a normal situation, but if you stick with it, you will become fat adapted and these things will go away. Hunger will come and go. It's not a constant. It doesn't increase linearly. So if you ignore it or if you have something to drink, then it will go away.
As wonderful as a strategy as this is, it is not for everyone. I'm going to talk briefly about the individuals that want to avoid this strategy. First and foremost, if you are a brittle diabetic or you have difficult to control diabetes, if you are a child, an adolescent, or age greater than 70, might not be the best strategy. If you are pregnant, if you have chronic heart issues, kidney or renal issues, not the best strategy. If you have a history of a disordered relationship with food, whether it is anorexia, bulimia, or binge eating, might not be the best strategy because it can invoke those tendencies. And last but not least, if you have a low body mass index, you're frail, or you've recently been in the hospitalized like I was for 13 days, I'm not currently intermittent fasting.
Let's recap what we have learned in today's episode. Fasting improves cognitive functions, weight management, autophagy and cellular repair, boost energy levels, and most importantly, reduce the insulin and inflammations in the body. In next episode, we will discuss more about autophagy that we mentioned in this episode. We will dive deeper in the fasting and the foods we should consume to become fat, adapted, and reap the benefits of the autophagy. Also, we will bring more information about the longevity benefits of the fasting.